Yeah, sure. I'll just quickly present a screen, and I think my job is very easy. As you say that the easiest job is to summarize whatever the previous speakers have said. So I'm trying to concise everything in a small tweet. So there's something which I thought to just put the complex contours of the Indian Evidence Act, which talks about electronic records and electronic signatures in a small kind of a PPT. I hope it would be helpful, and audience, please feel free to take a screenshot of it and can share it with your friends and family. So I think when we talk about the Indian Evidence Act in this context, we have to prove two things. One, we have to prove an electronic record, that particular sheet of PDF form or a Word form or a Word document, Excel sheet or whatever. You have to prove that okay, this is a valid electronic record. And on the other hand, you have to prove the signatures that this is a record which has been signed okay validly under the Information Technology Act. So while we have debated about the IT Act, let's just talk about, because everything in India would land to the doorstep of Justice Kaul, and we all have to convince him that my electronic record is like authentic and not tampered with, and it has been validly signed, or somebody has forged my signature. So these are some of the rules which I'm sure that plenty of lawyers would always like to test before Justice Kaul, and I'm sure that sir, you would, whenever a case comes to you, you would bless with your good okay interpretation on these laws. Because in India, except for Section 65B, at least in my experience, sir, having worked only in IT industry, internet industry for last 20 years, haven't seen the jurisprudence being developed, although the law is in the statute book since the year 2000. I think the critical part of every evidence is that whether your evidence is a documentary evidence, like a primary evidence, or a secondary okay evidence, which is in the form of the oral evidence. I think the law has been significantly upgraded in the year 2000, and by a second amendment which happened in the year 2008, where both IT Act and the Evidence Act were okay amended to give more boost and more kind of good provisions to back up any electronic record which is signed okay electronically. I think the most okay important part is that when you come before a court of law, how does a court of law think through whether your electronic record should be admissible as a primary evidence or a secondary evidence? Because if it can be admissible as a documentary stroke a primary evidence, you save a lot of court time and litigation time to prove that this is an authentic record. Section 65B will come to your rescue. And I think the things which are open now before the court to deliberate on Section 65B is that, is it a mandatory provision or is it an optional provision? In the sense that if a particular party is unable to produce a Section 65B documentation, would the relevancy of that documentary evidence, electronic record, would lose its relevance, or can it still be admissible as a secondary or okay evidence in the court of law? The second important part, which the law enforcement and judiciary is juggling it with, that at what stage you have to produce Section 65B certificate. Is it at the stage of start of investigation? Is it at the stage of charge sheet? Is it at the stage of pleading? Or is it at the stage when the court has to appreciate the evidence? That's still being now open in the court, and I'm sure that Honorable Supreme Court will come to some conclusion very soon on here. I think the most important part for the corporate lawyers is that uh, because all these electronic records are at times nowadays stored in a cloud server, it's not being stored in your system, or most likely it would be stored okay in a cloud server. Now, can a law enforcement agency, can a court compel the third party which is having the record of your electronic your document or contract to be produced them okay before the court as an evidence? I think Section 131 has to be interpreted, because if the party to a contract is not obligated to share it as a matter of evidence, then a third party who is acting as a repository of electronic contract cannot be compelled by a judiciary or by law okay enforcement to share that contract. So if you are using legality or maybe any other cloud service and all and storing your contract over there, you can be assured that uh, the judiciary and law enforcement can't compel them to produce the document as evidence unless you agree to it. So please be very careful when you are signing up to their privacy terms and the terms of use, because most of the people don't understand this kind of magical remedy you have. and you would unconsciously agree to their terms of use and privacy policy and empower them to share all documents which they are holding on your behalf to the law enforcement. And because right against self-incrimination is a very fundamental right under our constitution, right? So this section 131 comes to that rescue. And even if you don't have the documentary evidence, you can still can these records be still proved as the oral okay evidence? The answer is a clear no, because you could see section 59, which says that the content of electronic record cannot be proved by way of oral okay evidence unless the existence of electronic record is in question by virtue of section 22A. Now, I think the other important part is that the rule of presumption. I mean, you need to have that magical wand, okay, in your hand to ensure that you don't waste the court time as well as your own legal time and legal fees to spend 5 to 10 hearings just to ensure that your record are being okay produced as evidence. I think what you need to do is that you need to then ensure that your records are secure, your e-records, and for that you have to come to the rescue of section 14, 15, and 16 of the IT Act. If your records are secure electronic record, if your signatures are secure okay e-signature, the court has to draw a presumption of its validity and the authenticity. If it's not, then you would end up wasting everybody time and money to spend a lot of time just to prove the authenticity and validity of record. Same is the case with signatures. I mean, you could see that if you have a secure e-sign, the court has to draw a presumption. Court don't have a choice to really question the authenticity and the validity of the e-signatures. If it is a secure signature following the rules under section 15 and 16 of IT Act, court has no choice but to accept it. No one can question that. And similarly, I mean, if you have put your signature on an e-contract, the court has to draw a presumption that you intended to be bound by the content of those agreements and you intended to sign those signatures. Uh, so just have a look on that screen, and I'm happy to take any questions on that. Important part, I think folks also talked about I mean, in terms of what happen if somebody misuses the e-signatures. I know plenty of people just give the digital signature to the chartered accountants or company secretary or lawyers that, okay, if you want to file any document with income tax or with MCA or sign something with a contracting party, please use my signatures. I don't have time for that and all. So I think that has to be seen very carefully, because any misrepresentation, fraud, or misuse of the e-signatures has a criminal consequence under IT Act. I think a question has to be debated, because the forgery of signature under IT Act is liable for imprisonment up to 3 years. But if you go into IPC, it could go up to 7 years. Now it's a dichotomy of the law in terms of specific statute versus a general statute. There could be an argument that if you forge an e-signature, you can't be prosecuted under IT Act, IPC, but you can be prosecuted under IT Act. And under IT Act, the imprisonment is up to 3 years, and this becomes a bearable offense. But that doesn't mean that you should be forging it. My role is just to basically ensure that you understand various legal aspects in case you are misusing or forging any digital signatures. And last but not the least, in terms of stamp duty, I think I know plenty of people think that if they can do an e-contract or something like that, they can avoid paying the stamp duty, which otherwise they may have to pay if they have to do a physical contract. I think the answer is absolutely no, because if you see my bullet number 2, the rules of interpretation, I think Honorable Supreme Court and all the high courts have interpreted that you cannot take technical arguments to avoid paying of the stamp duty, because the stamp duty law is in the interest to protect the revenue of the government. So you cannot disguise your business dealing by saying that, hey, I have signed an e-contract and not a physical contract, and I can avoid paying any stamp duty. It's not very clear under the Stamp Act, but I think if you see the rules of interpretation as had been laid down by the various courts, you would be compelled to pay stamp duty. And I think if you don't pay stamp duty, there are your civil consequences as well as there are the criminal consequences. Last but not the least, I think very recently under Finance Act 2019, which came into effect on 1st of April 2020, now been extended to June, I think. they give a specific kind of a recognition to some specific electronic records, which are mainly in terms of the shares and securities. That if you are dealing in them, then you have to pay stamp duty. And you don't need to really put your e-signatures. Only attribution under Section 11 of IT Act has to be complied with for you to pay stamp duties on these specific instruments. So I'll just stop over here because I know that we have to give more time for the Q&As, but happy to take the Q&As over here.